Welcome to ILTV's Israel Weekly. Our main topics today: police recommend charging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with bribery and fraud in Case 4000. And is Israel seeing a new dawn in diplomatic relations? I'm Ladar Gravei-Lazi, and joining me in the studio to discuss are Bar-Ilan University professor and Arab-Israeli affairs expert Dr. Mordechai Kedar.
Good evening.
Political advisor Tzofia Nahon. Meretz member of Knesset Mossi Raz.
Good evening.
And Zionist Union political advisor Hod Yacovi.
Hi.
The Israel police recommended indicting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife Sarah on charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust on Sunday in the investigation known as Case 4000. The Prime Minister is suspected of taking bribes and awarding regulatory favors to Bezeq telecom media giant in exchange for positive media coverage. Police say there is sufficient evidence to indict Netanyahu, though the final decision whether to prosecute lies with Attorney General Avichai Mendelblit. Prime Minister Netanyahu has vehemently denied the allegations against him.
אני מקווה מאוד שההמלצה תתברר כלא נכונה. אני מתפלל ומקווה שראש הממשלה יימצא זכאי והממשלה תמשיך ותעבוד לטובת עם ישראל.
So, how serious are these allegations against the Prime Minister? Let's start with you.
I think very serious. I think nobody is surprised today. After 2 years of investigations, people know about those allegations, and I guess that the Prime Minister will have to go to the court and prove that he is innocent. Of course, yes, I know that they don't charge him yet, so maybe they will not. But my guess that we will have to wait to the decision of the court, and not only the Attorney General.
So, MK Laz is saying that there's very likely to be an indictment here. How likely is the Attorney General to prosecute these charges?
Well, first I want to start with explain what's the beginning of all this case. All this case started in 2015 on November when a reporter from Haaretz put an article that claimed that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, get involved in Walla website about articles against him. Let's say that it's true. We don't know, but let's say. Politicians and reporters have all the time interaction between them. And it's have to be like that because this is the only way to keep the freedom of information, the freedom of the press. And we have to keep these relations all the time working. So this is his right to call to a website and ask them not to publish something against him or to publish something for him. They don't have to listen to him, of course, but he has the right to do that. Now, we have information that passed inside from the Filber, the CEO of the communication office, that passed to channel Yes, it's on television. And we have good reports that was on Netanyahu family to claim that Benjamin Netanyahu was connected with something like that. Without any proof, it's ridiculous, and it's also not true. To blame Netanyahu that he took a bribe from a website when he talked with them, they talked with him. There is nothing behind that. It's just fake, and he should have to know when something like that happened to call it a bribe. So Benjamin Netanyahu didn't know about any of kind of talk about that. So he didn't have a bribe. He didn't do that. So I think that all this issue, all this idea, is just grow up in the sick mind of this cult they called Just Not Bibi.
I think the main problem with Bibi that he doesn't know anything about nothing. So he doesn't know about the
Can you tell me what he gave to get this
I don't know what he gave,
good reports
I don't know
about
what he
him.
gave.
So this is not
I
right.
don't know what he
This is
gave.
not right. To do
don't
it
have to
right,
prove
you have to
according to
give
the law.
something to get something.
I don't know.
No,
Yes.
no, you're wrong. It is not the law.
That's
it is
what
not,
bribe about.
No.
You can't bribe someone
No,
if you
no.
don't know that you bribe him.
The answer
You have
is
to
no,
get
and
something
it
for
was
the
in
thing that
courts
you gave.
earlier in Israel. Not in his case, in other cases. You don't have to prove that somebody got something. It is enough that he gave in order to get. Even
But
if
he
did not
didn't
give.
get anything. So if he didn't get anything, it's never happened.
No,
So if you don't
No,
have
it's
these
not.
relations of go and back,
I'm sorry,
it's
you
not
are
a
not
bribe.
familiar
I
with
don't
the...
Okay, let's hear
you're
from
not
Hod.
familiar
Yes.
with the court. With the,
I don't really think that you believe what you're saying. 4 cases, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. It begins to sound like,
sounds like a really good names that the media gave
No,
to it
no,
to
no.
make it sounds worse and worse. 1,000,
With
2,000,
Dormet,
3,000, 4,000.
It was the same thing. When you have 7 cases, 4 cases like this, every one of them is very bad case. It's complicated, and it's not just as you mentioned it. Just a reporter saying something. It's much heavier than this, and I think that I'm sure that he will be charged for it. He will be issued guard of the politic, and I think it's way over the limit of prime minister behavior as a normal prime minister. It's a shame for all of us.
All the media, all the politicians have connections with the media. All of them.
I'm not talking about
It's
this.
not- if something like that called bribe, we are going for a really dangerous situation that the media will not be allowed to be in touch with politicians. It means that the public, us, will not get information from politicians about what they're doing, about what they want to do, and it's really dangerous.
Okay, Dr. Kedar.
Well, I think that the truth is somewhere between the 2 poles. If there was nothing, there was nothing. Means the police would not spend 2 years of investigations if there was nothing. However, in Israel, there is a big gap between something which looks bad and something which is illegal. And this gap will be in court. And every side will push the wagon to its side. And believe me, it will take years from today. And whoever is holding his breath, waiting for Netanyahu to be indicted and to be kicked out of office, wait. It will take very, very long time.
We said about the same thing about
because the
Olmert.
windmills of the Israeli justices are very,
Yes,
very
it was the
slow.
same thing about
okay,
Olmert, and then-
so those who are happy about what happens, I would suggest that they wait a bit.
So there is talk that that Mendelblit could decide as early as the spring, something like that.
It's
what
not
does
only
this mean
Mendelblit, it's
for-
Mendelblit, and then the prosecution, and then they have hearings and on right and left and center, and then they have the first court, and then he can appeal, and he has a second court, the second hearing. Really, it will take years, way after his prime minister, after his prime minister.
Let's talk about that because he
for
said,
for everyone
yeah.
who is waiting for him to be kicked out from his office, wait, don't hold your breath.
So Netanyahu's repeatedly said, you mentioned there will be nothing because there was nothing, something
Okay,
that he
let him say it,
reiterated
okay.
today.
It rhymes
I mean,
nicely.
how worried is he right now? From what you're saying, he shouldn't be worried at all.
No. He is worried, no doubt. Of course, he knows how to play the game, to make the face, and like every politician who has to show that he doesn't care about all kinds of things. But believe me, he is deep in it, and he knows that he is deep in it. And maybe this is why he tries to go all over the world in order to divert the attention of the Israeli population from these files to his achievements in the international arena.
I think that if we're talking about the submarines, for example, we can see that Bibi, most of his best friends and family were involved in such a fraud. And what is he's saying about it? I didn't know. If you don't know, you're not You shouldn't be the prime minister. You shouldn't be.
I want to make
you
sure that my
manage all our
prime minister
security.
is busy with much more important thing.
This is a problem.
No, it's
this
not.
is a problem.
Much more
If
important thing
you're
like
the head of
taking
security
care
of Israel,
the security of Israel,
it's
then to get involved with Minister of Defense that now claim that Benjamin Netanyahu did everything, he knew everything, but he was okay, he was fine. He was the Minister of Defense. They didn't know about anything about this deal, okay? So please don't try to turn all this against the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister have to do a lot of work for Israel, and he can't be informed about every details in everything.
Otherwise, step aside. You can't take 4 cases to be 4 ministers and a prime minister and say I didn't have the time to know. So,
okay. Last thought on the subject before we move on to our next topic.
Basically, I think more or less like Dr. Kedar. I think that we should see. It seems very bad. I think that Netanyahu's chances in court are very low. But yes, it's not going to happen tomorrow morning. Unlike Olmert resigned when, more or less in this stage, when the recommendations were published, Olmert resigned because of his partners. His partners were Ehud Barak and Tzipi Livni, who told him, you have to resign, you have to leave. And Netanyahu doesn't have partners like them. His partners are not that sensitive about corruption. I would say more than that. They don't care
more
about
loyal.
They are more loyal to Prime Minister and less loyal to the corruption issues. And that's why I agree with Dr. Kedar, Professor Kedar, Dr. Kedar, that it's going to take a while.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to our next topic. The past few months have seen Israel establish diplomatic talks with Middle Eastern and African nations. Last week, the president of Chad, Idris Deby, arrived in Israel for an historic visit after the two countries have not maintained diplomatic relations for 46 years. The Chadian visit is part of a push made by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to strengthen Israel's ties with African and Middle Eastern countries, and included last month's visit of the Prime Minister to Oman, the first open visit by an Israeli Prime Minister to the Gulf region in over 20 years. There are also reports that Israel is maintaining secret diplomatic talks with other countries, including Sudan and Bahrain.
A few minutes ago, we discussed in my office the great changes that are taking place in the Arab world in its relations with Israel. This was manifested in my recent visit in Oman with Sultan Qaboos. And there will be more such visits in Arab countries very soon. But it is a fact that you, as a leader of an African country, an important African country, the majority of whose population is Muslim, is coming to Israel to renew our friendship and our relationship, I think is a testament of what is going to happen with other such countries in Africa as well. And I believe that you are paving the way for many others.
So, are we seeing a new dawn of diplomatic relations for Israel?
Well, the whole world is watching the Middle East and sees something which is unprecedented. The Arab world is divided sharply between 2 coalitions. One is led by Saudi Arabia, with the Emirates and Kuwait and Jordan and Egypt and Israel in the background, and the United States, while the other side is led by Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon of Hezbollah, Hamas, with Turkey in its background, and Russia. This was unprecedented. And now, since the Arab world is so divided, the whole world couldn't care less about the Arab world, and especially the Palestinians, which so far succeeded to put their foot on the brakes in everything connected to Israel. And this is why countries, Islamic countries, like Chad, like Niger, like Mali, like Oman, they don't care about Palestinians because they know the Palestinian issue nobody, even in the Arab world, nobody cares about this. So they can have relations with Israel because this situation allows them to do it. No, it's not the only thing. It's the Czech Republic, which opens a cultural house in Jerusalem, which is the first step before moving the embassy, maybe. And other countries are talking about this. So definitely, this is a very big achievement of Israel, which succeeded to push itself forward in the international arena because the Arab world is so deeply sinking into this swamp of fire and tears and blood. And this is what happens.
So are we going to be seeing new countries, other countries, renewing diplomatic relations with Israel?
I think probably the answer is yes. I find myself agree again with Dr. Kedar. I think that Prime Minister Netanyahu, that I fully don't support him, yes, he has some achievements, and those achievements are based on this division in the Arab world and on the fact that the president in US is President Trump. And yes, we should expect one or two, I don't know, few more states. But on the other hand, I must say, the president of Chad was not the one who sent missiles to Israel, and the president of Chad was not the one who sent protesters to the border with Israel, that 300 of them were killed. What I'm trying to say is that the fact that the world is not that interested in us now doesn't say that we solve our problems with the Palestinians. We still have the same problems, maybe even deeper problems, that we refuse to deal with. And one more thing that I want to say, that we see what happens while we have these new relations with, I will say, problematic governments. We see what happens in democratic states in Europe, that Israeli artists cannot go freely anymore to shows, to show freely. We see the soccer team of Argentina doesn't come here, and more problems that we have with the democratic world, while we have more and more relations with the not-democratic world.
Well, I don't think that it's a problem with the diplomatic world. I think it's a problem with the BDS movement doing I have to say, a kind of a really good job fighting Israel in the world.
Netanyahu is doing a very bad
I have to not agree with that. I have to not agree with that, because first, I have to say that Prime Minister Netanyahu worked on a really brilliant program since Obama time, that we saw that we can't be 100% trust the Americans. Of course, that today that we have Donald Trump as a president, we have a really good relationship with them. But what happened is that Prime Minister Netanyahu understand that you have to build relations with other countries. He did that with Japan, with China, with India, with countries that usually vote against us at the UN, but open a new relations with Israel by businesses, trade agreements, and visiting politics, diplomatic things, and we see that Benjamin Netanyahu built a really good relation with them. So I think he put Israel in a situation that we, not just a small country that fighting against her right to be a state by herself in the world. Today, other countries running after Israel to create new relations, especially about technology and cyber and high tech. So I think he's did a great job.
I must say that I don't agree. I think that Bibi Netanyahu is the worst foreign minister of Israel ever. I think that he's very lucky that Trump was elected, and it's very easy for him to do now all these meetings with unimportant countries. It's good to do it, but it's not something that is very important. You can see when Obama was the president, that all these meetings with Europe, Russia, all the countries went wrong. It was nice to visit them, but when they have to elected, they all elected against Israel. So I think it's very. It should have like the other cases to put someone to handle it. It's I think it's the worst situation for us all over the world. If Trump wasn't elected, I think it's
not true. The Prime Minister Netanyahu created new relations with India, with China, with really strong countries before Donald Trump win the election.
In December 2016,
we start the relations.
And
Of
they
course,
can
I have
vote
to do, I
against
have to
it.
do the
Resolution.
difference between the
Whoa.
votes in the UN, that it's under the Security Council there. We have to do the difference between that and between the fact that 80% of the countries in the world have relations with Israel today. It's mean that they are coming to visit in Israel.
They have to vote for it.
It's mean
But
that their
what was the
security,
percentage 10 years ago? Exactly
is
the same.
depends Israeli
Yes.
technologies.
Sophia,
It's
10
mean that
years ago,
they
when it came
involved
to
in a
power, the percentage was
it
exactly
means
the
that they're
same.
involved in economy with the economy and trade with Israel, and it's not just about votes against Israel about the
was
issue.
you who
No, wait a
mentioned
second.
the
Do the
votes,
difference
not me.
between
You
do the
mentioned
difference
votes.
between the Palestinians-Israeli issue and about the relations that Israel have with the West. Okay, there is a huge
we have
difference. Huge
Well,
difference.
I think that there's something which you guys do not see. Look at what happens in Europe. The right side of the political map actually taking over all Europe. Alternative for Germany, the Democratic Party in Sweden, Marine Le Pen in France became legitimate, UKIP in Britain, Salvini in Italy, Kurz in Austria.
And they support Prime Minister
Of course.
Netanyahu.
And this is the tomorrow of Europe, the right wing. You guys are living in the past. The past in the communist, socialist era, which is ended. Because today Europe goes to the right.
You're absolutely right, but
the
it
reasons,
doesn't say that I have to agree
Yes.
with them.
Thank
They
you so
are-
much that you agree.
They are
But what I'm
fascists.
saying
They
is
are anti-Semitized.
Netanyahu now actually is addressing the tide. He is with the tide. You guys live in the past. Wake up. Today the world is changing towards Netanyahu. And Netanyahu today becomes the pampered baby of the whole world, as you see, because...
Not of the world.
No, the normal world, not those who live in delusions, like all kinds of socialists, like in Ireland, who are deeply in the problems there, and nobody really takes them
Ireland is
seriously.
socialist? It was Prime Minister Netanyahu who said
Sir.
that Ireland is the model.
Look at what happened in Brazil. And okay, this is the world of today, of tomorrow, because the world woke up to see that the whole socialism.
Just 2 years ago,
and all
Brazil
these
did not
isms
accept
are
Israeli
nothing.
ambassador.
Doesn't mean
Are
that
air.
this is a success
And
of
nothing.
Bibi.
Okay, gentlemen, we have to end the show. That's all the time we
Thank you so
have for
much.
today. So that's all the time we have for today's ILTV's Israel Weekly. I'd like to thank our guests, Dr. Mordechai Kedar, MK Mosiraz, Sofia Nahon, and Hod Yakovi. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News, on Twitter at ILTV News, and on our website at iltv.tv. I'm Ladar Gavelazi. Thanks for watching.